Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Chums, where chatting about movies feels like hanging out with friends. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Danny.
This week, we're discussing Batman Begins, directed by Christopher Nolan and written by Nolan and David S. Goyer. The film stars Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, and Morgan Freeman.
In this episode, we're looking at the gritty reboot that redefined superhero origin stories. We'll discuss how Batman Begins reshaped the Dark Knight's cinematic legacy, set the tone for modern comic book films, and laid the base for an epic trilogy. We're wrapping up our month-long celebration of movies hitting milestone anniversaries in 2025, this one hitting 20 years. And next week, we kick off a new theme, Wrongfully Accused Movies. And we're starting that off with The Fugitive.
One of your favorites.
One of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
Definitely. But look, before we roll the intro, if you enjoy what we do and want to support us, you can head over to realchums.com. That's REELCHUMS.com, where you can donate any amount of money to show your support, whether that's $1, $5, whatever that is. It really just helps us keep these energy drinks, keep the lights on. And we have no paywall.
Yeah.
So feel free to donate.
Yep. We are really busy individuals and we want to do more content. And the more, as you create a crew, we will be able to make really awesome stuff more possible. So don't forget to follow us on, if you're not going to do that, be sure to follow us on YouTube at Real Chums and all other socials or wherever you get your podcasts. So with that being said,
let's roll the intro.
Okay, I need to... I knew when we started this podcast, this is a film that I 100% was like, I'm like, I don't know when or what sequence we're going to do, but this is the film that I was looking forward to for the conversation.
Yeah. This is our episode 101. That's how we're hitting the... if we were a TV show, we would have hit syndication right now.
Okay? We're ready to go.
And we're kicking it off with Batman Begins.
And I'm loving it. Yeah, so if you've listened to us since the beginning, I just want to say thank you.
Also, Danny, congrats. You did it. 100 episodes.
I did it. You did it.
Yeah. I just show up, dude.
Well, you say that you think that's not that big of a deal, but statistically, we know that most people don't even make it past 10 episodes.
That's true.
And I knew at episode 3, I was like, no, you're in. And I'm like, because you're in, I'm in.
Because you're in. Good. So, anyways, congratulations, though.
Congratulations to you. Thanks for coming to me on one Sunday and say yo, I have an idea.
And congrats to our listeners who have been listening.
And if you
first time or for a while now.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Truly. If you are new here, we do often do a question of the day, either given by me or Marcel. And honestly, I think for this one, we're gonna do. I know normally we do a question of the day, and then we talk about our what was our first experiences. I just think that that's the question of my day, because this was a big deal.
2005. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This was released June 15th, so we're coming up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My relationship with this, dude. Let me paint you a picture.
Please do.
2005. This is Marcel 3 months after he just turned 16.
Mm.
Okay. I just got a car, a little $700, $800 Dodge Spirit, 1980 something Dodge Spirit. Okay. We nicknamed it the Beater because it was a beater. And I am on top of the world. Okay. I have a car. I am driving places. I've been expecting and anticipating this movie. I saw this, I think 3, maybe 4 times in theaters.
Mm.
Okay. And the year before, in 2004, they had shown us a teaser trailer. And I remember when they were showing us the teaser trailer and it was just shots of glaciers.
Yeah.
Buildings. You have the voiceover from Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
And then he says something along of what is it that you're afraid of, Mr. Wayne?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mr. Wayne? Bruce Wayne? and then you see the fluttering of the bats. at the end, and I'm like, Batman Begins, what? We're doing this.
Yeah.
And just the excitement that I had for this movie. Like I said, I saw this 3 or 4 times in theaters. I loved it. I thought it was just God's greatest gift to mankind was this movie. And obviously bought it. And this is one of those movies that I've seen a lot. I think I've seen The Dark Knight more.
Oh, I think I'm 100% sure I've seen the Dark. No, I've seen the Dark Knight more.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm fairly sure that I've seen The Dark Knight more than this. But I mean, for a while, I was constantly watching this because like
Yeah.
this is my Batman.
Yeah.
As much as I love Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, like this just topped that in so many ways. That we'll discuss in a second. But this was my movie, and like I just have so many memories just because this was the summer where I was driving. This and
Okay.
Phantom of the Opera, okay, also came out in
Yes,
2005.
yes. Okay.
I was going back. I saw Phantom of the Opera like 4 times, also in theaters.
I love the juxtaposition
Yeah.
just there. Okay, I need to know who did you take? Did you take a girl to see Batman Begins?
I went with my brother. I think the first time.
I'm sure you did.
And then maybe I might have gone with my dad, and then I think I went with like a group of friends.
Group of friends, yeah.
I think that's how it was.
Mm.
And then maybe like a smaller group of friends. Well, maybe like 3 or 4 of us went like the last time.
Mm. Okay. I love that. So I was just 3 years younger than you.
Yeah.
13. So I didn't have a car. But I was I had an agreement with my dad. And he's like, mijo, you do good in school, and if you want some money, you just let me know. Okay? And so dude, I also remember the freaking trailers. Dude, the bat symbol
Yeah.
is ingrained in this.
Straight lines.
Yes.
Very different to the half circle wings.
Yes.
From the previous ones. Yeah.
And so I mean, the trailer drops, we're all like freaking excited. I'd been wanting another Batman, like, just because, like, you had, I grew up with
Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin. Well, so I had the one we just Batman Forever.
Yeah.
So that was a big one as a kid. But then Batman and Robin, and it is what it is. But this desire for a new Batman and having it be this like thing like, and this like, what does it mean begins? Like, but we know Batman's origin story, right? But we're all like there, but the benefit is like we didn't know who Nolan was, right? Like as a 13-year-old kid, you don't see Memento,
Right. As a young kid, you had no idea who Christopher Nolan was.
right? So, but I remember going to the mall with friends, my group of friends, my homies, to this day, who like we talk all the time about different things, but this was like the beginning of the era of the independence and us solidifying like a deeper bond as bros,
Yeah.
of like friends, of like solidifying your fandoms, of your passions, of like whatever. So going to this movie theater, experiencing this darker, grittier world, and I mean having Liam Neeson play Ra's al Ghul. I mean, having Ra's al Ghul alone is just a wonderful choice. But I just coming out of that and just being literally just my mind blown.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is amazing.
It's one of those movies. I remember when I walked out, I remember very clearly just feeling like I just witnessed something like different. Like,
yes.
Yeah, we had Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, which is an iconic sequel and an incredible superhero movie.
That's one of my favorite. That's in my top 10s.
Yeah. Well, Spider-Man 2 came out 2005, I think, right?
Yes.
And so like, and it's great, but like I watched this, I'm like, I just witnessed something like history in the making, which did. Right? From here on out, every studio was talking about how do we do a quote unquote grounded superhero movie. It's all
Yes.
about grounded and
Yes.
gritty, right? And it set the tone in cinema for what we've witnessed the last 20 years.
I think as we discuss this, I think my question that I want to circle back at toward the end is, what is the real and true impact of this film to Christopher Nolan's greater career?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
So
Let's jump into a quick synopsis here. After witnessing the murder of his parents, Bruce Wayne travels the world seeking the means to fight injustice. Returning to Gotham, he assumes the persona of Batman and battles the League of Shadows and Gotham's corruption from the inside out. I want to start off with I wrote down this question. What sets Batman Begins apart from other Batman films, and especially like superhero movies in general? What is it that captivated audiences, and it sets this movie apart from anything we had witnessed before?
this is a great question, and I think this is so. I'm not going to take credit for this one because I think this is coming from a TikTok. I'm gonna have to find it in my feed, but another movie lover brought up a question. Not this question, but he brought up the fact that like the reason why we don't love a lot of the films is that they're not solving problems. They're not working a problem. And I think because we just watched the problem, like what's work the problem, right?
Yeah.
But he in this situation, Nolan pitches this story, develops it with David Goyer to have a Batman who we get to witness his journey of trying to solve a problem. And I think that is, and then in 2 years later or a year later, when did Iron Man come out?
2008.
Yep.
So 3 years.
3 years later. Because of this film, I think we then get what later Iron Man also has a similar, like he's, just like the comic book, but like they hone in on that human element of like, I trying to grow. The only thing is that like you get to amplify that because you're personifying, you're becoming a vigilante, you're taking it into what there. And this is what comic books have always produced. The benefit in the comic book is that you get to escape and you're gonna have wonderful art, and whatever. When it comes to film, you have to find how do you before this, all the Batman films, I mean with early Batman, with the 60s, they made it quirky.
Yeah.
Right? Then we get the stylized with the Tim Burtons. Then we get it to a weird mixture with the Batman Forever and Batman Robin of like
Schumachers.
The Schumachers of, it's like, no, we need to dial in on why people love Batman from the comics. But Nolan, he asked, no, what is the human of Bruce?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is why this sets it apart.
I love that. Like the humanity of Bruce Wayne. And it's interesting because this movie gets overshadowed by The Dark Knight.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought. Can you?
Just because, like, I think when we talk about the Dark Knight trilogy, we praise the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And we dog on the Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
In general, I enjoy the Dark Knight Rises.
As do I.
And then we just don't mention Batman Begins. And it's a weird relationship audiences have with this trilogy. And watching this, like, I love that you bring up like the humanity, the human aspect of Bruce Wayne, because we had never seen a fully fleshed out origin story of Batman and who Bruce was, right? And look, this is our fourth Batman movie we do on the podcast. So like these movies are fairly fresh on my mind, but like if we watch Batman 89, Batman's established, right? We get some flashbacks, right, as Vicky Vale is researching who Bruce is, but not to this degree. And I am fascinated by the screenplay here, because you immediately say this movie's called Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And it's almost cheating a bit, because now you're telling the audience this is the beginning. So for the first 45 minutes, you are not going to see Batman.
Yeah.
And that is so smart because you are leveraging the title of your movie to get away with this. Because 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier, even now, you cannot get away with not showing your superhero suit up within 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, let's just take the juxtaposition. Batman Forever, literally, like the very opening sequence is him getting all his stuff.
Yeah, getting ready, right?
Right.
Putting it all on.
It's immediate satisfaction for that situation.
And I just love that the movie cheats in that aspect. And I
I
quote unquote cheats, right? Because
I think 100%.
But that's crucial because now you're taking 45 minutes to say, who is Bruce Wayne? And again, this is where Christopher Nolan, his love obsession with time.
Yes.
And time jumps and flash forwards and flashbacks.
Yes.
He really hones in on this. It's paced really well.
Yeah.
As we're getting to know Bruce Wayne from where he's at right now in Nepal or wherever, to the flashbacks as a child, to the flashbacks as a young adult, and what led him now to Nepal. It is really well structured. And I really am fascinated how the screenplay is built out from that aspect.
Yeah, I specifically, as I was watching this, I'm like, again, I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate you bringing up the fact that we overshadow Batman Begins.
Yeah.
We didn't when it first came out, but because I think there's a lot, and we'll talk about it whenever we get to Dark Knight, but, so much happens there's amazing performances, Heath Ledger's death, lots of things that are there. But this film, like you said, I actually think it's like almost like exactly half of the movie when we first get it's a city, it's a drone shot or a helicopter shot of like some kind of, I don't know if it's a mannequin or if it's actual, some other dumb, but on the gargoyle or the perch.
Yeah.
And we get the actual like him with the cape in the back, and it's just like the hero shot of, and I'm just like, because I also was like counting, I was like, well, okay, where does it really break down? But I just want to reiterate the fact that the first half of that movie is Bruce trying to solve we are introduced to the same thing that we're not even introduced to the traditional trope of why Batman becomes who he is. We're introduced into the initial well of where he gets, which I do appreciate, of where that they note that he falls in the well and gets scared from this bat, right? And we get the iconic line, Bruce, why do we fall?
Yeah.
To learn to get back up, right? And I use that with my kid all the time because I'd rewatched it when they were like 5 or whatever, and it's such a powerful lesson. And but I love that because Batman is human. He, of all the superheroes, of all the things, this is why so many people love Batman, is he's a person who's using the resources that he has to overcome the challenges that, unlike any other person in the DC universe, can do.
This is what I love about this script, about the screenplay. Because we take time to flesh out who Bruce is as a child, as a young adult, and even Thomas Wayne. The difference about Batman is that he doesn't get bit by a radioactive spider. He isn't from Krypton and has these powers. He isn't chosen by the Green Lantern Corps to wear this ring. He chooses. He, as a character, has agency to choose to become Batman. Unlike any other character in comic books, right? Yes, eventually Spider-Man has to, with great power comes great responsibility, and makes that choice, but he doesn't make that choice until he's bitten after the fact, right? Yes. Batman, Bruce Wayne, especially in this version, we are shown how Thomas Wayne uses his resources to benefit the city, right? And it's I love a good exposition sequence, right? The whole train sequence, right? It's so smart from a screenplay perspective to have the Waynes take public transportation and say, oh, Dad, is that where you work? No, I work at the hospital, son. Not only am I rich, but I'm a hardworking rich man that doesn't work in corporate. I use my hands, right? And I leave the company for better men. Better men? More capable men, right? And like I love this, right? We build this train again, setting up something that's going to pay off later. And but it's crucial because then we get that flash forward or flashback to him and Rachel,
Yes.
and him wanting to avenge his parents' death. And that interaction that he has, excuse me, that interaction that he has in the car with Rachel, as he
Yeah.
shows her the gun, and for her to smack him not once,
Twice.
just to make sure he gets it right, and that his dad would not be proud of him, right? It's these interactions in these positions or these situations that you put your character in for him to decide to want to do something about it. And that's what's so great about these first 45 minutes, this first act, is that we are not going to show you Batman. We're going to show you who Bruce is
No.
and why Bruce has to take on the mantle of Batman, and the choices and the situations and circumstances that lead him to become Batman.
Absolutely. It is to me, the Rachel slapping Bruce
Yeah.
is the pinnacle. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's like it's such a solidifying moment of him, another moment of humanity in this film, right? It's a close friend who you've grown up with, who has stuck around.
Yeah.
She could have left. She was part of, she was a daughter of somebody who came to the grounds to help out or whatever. And, they played together as friends. There's history, and she's there for him. And, this is early, maybe he's 20 or 18 or whatever, because he's and having her slap him in audacity is just so grounding.
Yeah.
What I then appreciate, right, is then, and then we have a little bit, he gets robbed of the justice, right? He gets robbed of justice because Falcone or Maroni sends his men to Falcone sends him to kill the guy, right, for ratting, and then he gets lost. The thing that that consumed him was taken away from him.
Yeah.
And I think that again, from the screenplay standpoint, is fantastic. I think that we then we reset him to low, right? Again, we talk about this all the time of being able to, like, you whatever you're gonna do, you need to reset yourself to be able to have a new those rising arcs for your story, right? But in filmmaking, it's so crucial, because otherwise you have nowhere to go, right? And there's so many ways of doing this, but what Nolan's done, because it happens on screen, it's fast. We're not even like we're far from the situation, right? Bruce isn't actually, like, he's still contemplating what he wants to do. That's what I think I love. It's like he has the gun, he sees him there, but he's far off. He hasn't positioned himself closer or whatever, right, to take true action, right? He's not like right by the door. He's far off, and he gets cheated, to say.
Yeah.
And that then opens up a hole for him that he gets lost around the world.
Yeah. And it's great because you mentioned Iron Man earlier, but like Iron Man does something similar, right? It shows the flaw of our character early on.
Yes.
And this is what this movie does.
Yes.
Right? We've always assumed that Batman, cinematically, Batman is just, he's not going to kill because he's not going to use guns because his parents were killed by guns. But like, no, here the man went out of his way, bought one, hit it, was ready to take action. And he would have if someone else hadn't taken that, right? We break down our character in order to rise him, in order to have him stand up again, so to speak. And it's just beautiful screenplay writing. I mean, I am fascinated with the first act of this movie.
Do you think because of this, how much of this I mean, we brought this up when we did Oppenheimer. Nolan is amazing. He's amazing at many things. But when he writes some, obviously we talk about his lack of strong females. I do think in these films, has some of the best moments for some of the females. There's just not enough of it.
Rachel Dawes is incredible in this.
Yes, I agree.
Right? She's incredible, especially as an original character. Phenomenal.
My question to you though is, how do you feel? What do you think the take is from Goyer and Nolan on the screenplay? Like how much of this is a Nolan and how much of it is a Goyer?
I think the actual script mostly is Goyer, whereas the story is a combination of the two. I mean, you see this with there's so much similarities between this and his next film, which was The Prestige.
Yes.
Right, the breaking down of an individual.
Yeah.
The time jumps. That aspect is 100% Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
But I do feel like a lot of the actual script, the lines, is going to be Goyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first act, I mean, I just absolutely love how it's structured. And it ends with him heading back to Gotham. And now he has learned, and he basically just tells Alfred, like, I'm going back home, I'm going to fight injustice as a symbol, as something else, right? And so not only is the character informing himself of what his next steps are, but we as an audience now know where this movie's now going to lead us to.
So I want to take one step backwards. What is your feelings of the Ra's al Ghul, the training with the League of Shadows?
Oh, it's great. I love it.
I love it so much. In fact, I think I remember seeing Batman with the katana.
Yeah.
And the Batman gauntlets and I just was like, oh, this is so smart. This is so great. This like, I don't know, ninja training sequence thing that's bringing, and I don't know. I think they, we, like you said, like earlier, we all just jump in and whatever, but Batman's a master. He did, Bruce in the comics has gone and traveled the world to hone in the skills that he felt was needed. But I love that they decided to go with this opening up this character who kind of takes him on as like a father figure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so smart. It's so wonderful. And it's so key again to the script because it then solidifies, like, he's brought to to bring justice, the thing that he's wanted that was robbed from him. And yet because of his growth, he realizes is not what he really wants. And then that carries us into the next act.
Yeah. What a smart way to introduce a character. An incredible way to tie the villain to an origin of our hero, and to make that connection more personable, right? Because by doing that, there is this personal attachment that he has. Clearly, obviously he saves Ra's al Ghul's life.
Yeah.
Because he has that attachment. He
I warned you, Bruce, to not get attached.
Yeah, right. And he becomes attached to this father-like figure.
Yeah.
That helps him process his fear, his backstory. But then that pays off later in the movie, right? That he shouldn't have saved him. And so it's an incredible way of introducing the villain, of introducing the origin, and introducing what's going to pay off later as he becomes like the main villain.
Yes.
And again, I don't think every superhero movie needs to do this.
No.
But how, as a writer, as a filmmaker, what are the elements that you're doing in a script, in a story, to make sure that your hero, in this case, in a comic book movie, to make sure that your hero is set up to make his conflict personal?
You know where I'm gonna go with this?
Please go.
Quantum Mania, bro.
Okay, we're going back to Quantum Mania.
It's just because you I love that because it has to become personal for that individual, and it doesn't have to be in this way. It can be in a superhero heroic other
Yeah.
aspect, whatever it has to be. But that is the thing that like lacks in that, because like King, the potential for that, the potential for them for Ant-Man and King to have this large tension,
Yeah.
was literally there
Mm-hmm.
to be able to build such a great moment, and it was robbed.
Yep.
And this film, like having this moment, sharing your thoughts, and after rewatching it and knowing that like this is why we struggle with some of these modern superhero films.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we were given some of the best early, because people were trying so hard to make really good ones before the money and the claim and the popularity
Yeah.
robbed some of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think, to me, and again I want to bring back the fact that like this is about solving a problem. He has now a new problem. How does he come back from the dead? How does he start to take on and fix Gotham? And we get introduced to the best ever, is Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox. And I love it because up until this point, everyone who watched Batman had no idea. Like the general public had no idea who Lucius Fox was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That wasn't a common name.
Sure.
Right? He's become more of a thing. There's if you read any comics, his son ends up taking the cowl for a little bit. There's lots of great things, but this character is such an interesting, and the concept of like him, because you're always like, well, how does the comic as a kid or whatever, you like, well, how does Batman be able to like how does he do this without anyone figuring it out? And I love that we get to experience that.
Yeah.
So I want to know what's your out of the sequence with Lucius and Bruce, what are your favorites?
I love the what's the bat wheel?
The jumper?
No,
Yeah, the
what's it called?
the crawler?
No, someone's yelling at us right now through their phone. The tumbler.
The tumbler.
I heard you. The tumbler. I just love the tumbler scene. I just love that they go out of their way to explain. Oh yeah, the tumbler. It was originally meant for like bridge jumping. We couldn't get the darn thing to work, so now it's just sitting here. Oh, this this suit,
Kevlar weave.
suit. It was too expensive. No government wanted to spend X number of dollars.
Oh, I thought it was Wayne did, or anyways.
Yeah, or whatever it was, right? And so like I like that we take the time to say to give us a functional in-world application of the gadget, and then say, but here's how we're gonna use it now, right? And it's, I don't know, it's, you might think it's like, or like not needed, but like no, we needed that.
Yes,
and it works in this story building world that they're creating, right? Because you are taking time to tell us how Bruce becomes Batman, how Bruce creates this persona. So therefore, you need to take time to explain the gadgets, and I think it works great. But for me, it's a Tumblr sequence. I love it. I will say though, like watching this movie this time around, and knowing who Christopher Nolan is, not that I know him, but like knowing his work of art, you can very easily spot out like studio notes of like add humor here,
yeah,
add humor there,
yeah,
add this line here, because like some of the humor here, I'm just like, this is too cheesy, too corny for me. It's like, does it come in black?
Yeah, does it come black? Or are you expecting to be shot at while Spelunk or Mr. Wayne? Yeah, no.
But the Tumblr sequence, I really enjoy it because he's in the car, He's explaining the real world application of the vehicle, and then he's just taking it for a spin. And don't push that button. Also, how impractical why would you create a vehicle that way as a stick? Like later in the movie, right? He asks, "Can you drive a stick?"
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that would be extremely
Impractical. 100%.
if you're being shot at by.
And again, I think that was part of one of those studio notes. Put a joke in here.
Yeah, ask if he can drive a stick.
Yeah. No. I love the bat suit. The initial like him coming in like getting and honestly the utility belt of I think those two moments. It's like the two things that like begin to shape the bat suit, and Lucius, Morgan Freeman. Like you said, I love that. I personally, I absolutely love that they do talk about the application of it.
Yeah,
and I think it maybe maybe it doesn't need it, but I think it's great. I think it gives you that benefit, and it gives you that part of it is just like that technology can be used in this way, and like people who are trying to make something new and impressive has been done. Ingenuity, things that Batman is.
And this is I mean, Christopher Nolan has talked extensively about his desire to want to do a James Bond movie.
Yes.
Right? And so like this is his nod and love of the James Bond movie.
100%.
Put into here, right? Where Q always tells James what to do with gadgets and how to apply them and whatever, right? So like this is very much like his love letter to the movies.
Yeah.
One day we'll get a Christopher Nolan. No, we won't. Not that it's now owned by Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll do something else that will be similar in the same vein, and he'll still get another nod, because I think it'd be great. At this point of the film, Bruce is starting to begin to take his notes. I mean, there's not nearly enough detective work in here as much as I would love, but there is moments that are just that are still great. I love that he's pulled old reports of Gordon. Mm-hmm. He's trying to sift through what's going on, what's happened. I love that we get this montage of Alfred and him trying to figure out how they want to do the cowl as well. But then I truly enjoyed the beginning relationship between Gordon and him trying to figure out how to approach it, right? And it's not, and the fact that we get to see him fail at it. I love that he comes into the precinct, he holds a stapler to his thing, which, sorry, real side note, the cinematography, the ratio for contrast truly shifted everyone's tone. Like, I think this is solidifying the beginning of like a more natural okay, what are we gonna do? Let's make sure it doesn't feel quite like a studio or whatever. We have harsh shadows, we have dark, we have contrast on the face, we're shooting on the opposite end, not on, just so many wonderful things.
Yeah.
About just the lighting and some of the cinematography. In any case, but I love that he leaves and Gordon chases after him and then comes up on the ceiling, and he's having to jet and just wrecks himself trying to jump from the ceiling to the ladder thing and getting out of there. And then later in the film, he's all bruised up, still from the encounter.
That hit that he gets, man, I feel it every time,
dude. Every time.
The sound design also just just no, it's great. It's really smart how they manage and handle the relationships that Bruce/Batman has with all these different individuals. With Alfred, with Lucius, with Rachel, with Gordon, right? And it's taking time to have moments with them individually, right? Something that the previous versions lacked.
Yeah.
And so I love that we take that moment of him taking just a few seconds of him like looking up profiles and files of all these individuals that he's hoping he can trust or can't trust, and determine what's best for him. And then, like you said, that interaction of just like creating this feeling of, are there multiple people of paranoia even to Gordon, right? Like, how many of you are there? I just love that. This idea of like leveraging theatricality
Yeah.
as a strength is so cool.
So
So cool. But I love also, like, we earlier have that opportunity and we get a huge payoff in Dark Knight Rises.
yeah.
But the fact that he was the one that like saw him as a little kid and grabbed his dad's coat and put it on him,
hmm
like, you didn't need to do that.
But
You did.
yeah.
And it makes that connection so much stronger.
Yeah.
And the beautiful payoff later, 2 movies later,
Yeah.
of as he tells him, like, you put this coat on me, right?
Yeah.
It's just incredible how they manage these relationships.
Mhm.
But I do want to talk, speaking of relationships, I want to talk a little bit about Michael Caine and Christian Bale, the two of them together.
Mm.
I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
I got nervous for it. I was like, I don't know if this is the like, I don't know about this, or
No, I love their I love the relationship that they have. It is so, like, it's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And as a grown man, like, I get so emotional how Alfred has this love for the Wayne legacy,
Mhm.
for what the Waynes stand for, how he wants to guide Bruce and help him embrace this legacy, and the conflict that he has with him in what does it mean to be a Wayne, and how are you going to juggle this as Batman and whatnot, and it's something that, like, I'm trying not to talk too much about Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, but like, it's something that really carries a thread that carries throughout the entire trilogy.
Yes.
And it's laid out here so beautifully because we see another side of Alfred that we hadn't seen before. This is a man who takes this child, and he even says, like, why do you care so much? Because a man I loved, made me responsible for the one thing that he cares about the most.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, such great.
And it's just a beautiful dynamic that they have. And I can't praise enough the performance for Michael Caine as he embraces and takes on this father figure role for Bruce, and then continues to encourage him and support him, but tries to always say, like, what are you doing for the legacy that your dad built?
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't think we would have this film without him.
Yeah.
Like, and not just him, but I think like this role, this, like you said, no one took the time to say, okay, who's Bruce? What is Bruce doing? Why is it that he does this? We get it in the comic, but how are we going to do this to solidify it on the big screen? And part of that is Alfred. Alfred, I love that he is this historian. I love that he's like, you're, in the, during the Civil War or during with the slaves, this, we must have used this for the Underground Railroad and like, and just adding these little moments of like, you come from a legacy of people who want to do good. And we know that we get at the opening intro with his dad saying, no, that's, I'll leave it up to there, but we built this so that people could have, be able to travel and get to where they need to do. Right. And so this legacy, this connection, and it is, I think, something that, Warner Brothers tried to win something with that, with the, that TV series that was about,
Oh my god,
it was such a joke, but Pennyworth. And so, and just having this perspective of like this, that Alfred has been just waiting, and he's like, he had this faith that, Bruce would return, and that he would be able to better in whatever that meant. Maybe that just was that maybe he would, wasn't happy, but he was there, right? And then he was taking care of things, making sure things that were taken care of.
Yeah. I just love that interaction. I love the two of them. His iconic, like, you still haven't given up on me, never.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just so good, that father-son relationship that they have. It's beautiful.
I mean, again, we had Ra's al Ghul take that at the beginning, at the first of the act. We get it again with Alfred, and it carries into the third act. And to me, honestly, one of my favorite scenes of this whole film is not one that I thought I was gonna say for this watch, I guess, and maybe going forward. But like, I kind of forgot about the scene where I didn't forget about the scene where he gets scarecrowed. With the mask. With Cillian Murphy, this is my introduction to Cillian Murphy, and it solidified my love for him.
This is gonna be a long episode, everyone. Just so you know.
Just lock in.
Yeah.
After 100, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly.
I really enjoy. So he gets toxic. Gets scarecrowed. He is dealing with this gas. He's tripping out. He's trying to find solutions. He falls out. He gets lit on fire, and I just absolutely love. And this is something that I a lot of the comics have done in the past, where like Batman's in a hard situation. The person he calls is Alfred.
Yeah,
and I forgot about the scene of him just like Alfred, and him like getting caught, and he's like dealing in the car, and they get him, and he wakes up. I always remember him waking up. How long have you been out? 3 days, sir. But that just scene is just I love that. I think it's one of the moments, those things that like Batman doesn't always win.
Mm-hmm.
He does what he can, and there's times that he just gets wrecked, and he's got to get picked up within the Bentley, so he doesn't freaking die, And I don't know. It just really again solidified that like human aspect of like he's choosing to go out and do these things. He's choosing, to get the compound, like brings these characters in. Lucius finds, he's like, took me a little bit to find, isolate the compound, but we were able to do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And these things that like Batman does, and he does it because he's on this mission, and there are people who are there to support him, or he's doing it on his own, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. I just, such a great scene, little moment that I think goes under notice because of all the other cool things that could happen.
Yeah.
But especially with everything that we've talked about over the last 100 episodes, these are the small moments that really solidify. That's just like stamp of approval for this film.
Yep. Rachel Dawes. I want to take a minute to talk about like the structure of that character.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Again, it's fascinating as a character to show her as a child, daughter of a maid.
Yeah.
In the Wayne home.
Yep.
Right. And she works her way to become an assistant DA. Right. So great character development from that aspect. But you also write her because she's an assistant DA, you now have the opportunity to write her in situations that are going to be relevant to the plot and story of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yes, she would be hunted by the mafia because she's pushing buttons and trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
So of course, a situation like that would happen. Rather than just making her a damsel in distress, which to a big kind of like she gets knocked out twice in this movie, which is a huge bummer. But like, yeah, you would have a character like this that is asking questions, that is ruffling some feathers on behalf or for the mafia, and therefore she's going to be hunted. And now it gives us an opportunity for Batman to come in and engage and interact with her. Not just Bruce and Rachel, but Batman and Rachel. And I think that's really smart because, again, you are now giving your character agency, an ability to make choices and decisions rather than I'm a damsel in distress. And this is very much if there's a big issue in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, is that Mary Jane just gets caught up and now Spider-Man has to save her for whatever reason,
Yeah.
right? True damsel in distress. Here, however, she's a functioning character. She's making choices to find the truth. And I think that's very powerful of this character to do that because she continues to challenge. I love the performance, especially from Christian Bale as they're in that restaurant and he's leaving with the two girls.
Yes.
And he's playing the playboy part, and then he sees Rachel, and immediately the shift
Yes.
in the performance as he becomes a little more serious and approaches her, and she has that line of it's not what you do, but it's not who you are. How's it go? It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you, right? And so continuing to challenge him, even though he is doing the right things and he can't tell her, it's those moments of that interaction that we have between Bruce and Rachel, a setup that later becomes a payoff.
No, here's where I think this is where I think Alfred, obviously a character, but Rachel Dawes is an original character for this film, and I think it is crucial. And I think it's because, and we don't get this, but what we see is that Bruce and Rachel have the same response, but Bruce has to go through on this journey. But Rachel has a similar desire. She wants justice.
Mm-hmm.
She wants justice for her friend's family, for somebody who she cared about, who took care of her family with, who knows what the Waynes did after, with all the people that served them. I'm assuming that there was probably some kind of, they're like, we can't, you're not going to work here, but we're going to take care of you for a time period or whatever. And then, but also that they were caring people, so they probably knew them, with the Bruce and they had Christmas parties together and blah, 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 blah. And having her rise the ranks, and not only that, but then her, being shocked and appalled by Bruce wanting to kill the man, and realizing, whatever journey she went on in order to get her to the assistant DA's office.
Yeah.
Because that's not not just anyone gets to the assistant DA. That is a very deliberate decision. You're trying to do good in the city, to accomplish something, to do good in a place that needs it, right? And they're on parallel paths, and like you said, they're just Bruce, he can't say anything, and it hurts, it pains him. I think that scene, I've had back and forth like, oh, this is it's a moment for him there, but Christian Bale really does an amazing performance. Katie Holmes locks it in there too.
Yeah.
With how they deliver that moment. It's so subtle. It is, if you're not maybe this is the 100th time you want, 50th time you watch it, you're like, oh, it's great. But really, it really is phenomenal acting here. They cared about the script. They cared about the scene. And I even love the fact that they have it's broken with the, come on, Bruce, we have more hotels to buy. Right. And his Rachel just rolling her eyes, like, okay, this is, I thought, I want you to be better.
Yeah.
And Bruce knowing he's trying to do better and can't tell her.
Yeah.
And it's just phenomenal.
And it's also, we end the movie with, they're holding hands, but she tells him, until you put this mask or this persona away, you won't truly ever be yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we continue to have this character that's, even though she knows his true identity and what he's doing, she's still going to challenge him.
Yeah.
And I think that is such great writing for this character, which again, massive payoff for what happens in The Dark Knight
Yeah.
and her growth there.
Yeah.
Just wonderful stuff here from the character of Rachel Dawes. I want to shift a little bit to something that, like, as a kid, always like stood out to me about this movie.
Mm.
Let's talk themes.
Okay.
What's this movie about?
I mean, justice versus vengeance.
Really? That's what comes
No.
top of mind.
No. If I'm like when I think about this film,
There's one word that's constantly repeated in this movie. Fear.
yeah.
What do you fear, Mr. Wayne?
Yeah.
What are your biggest fears? Right?
Yeah.
I want to strike fear. It's funny because, like, again, as a 16-year-old, I came out of this movie, I'm like, so this movie's about fear. Clearly this movie's about fear.
Okay.
They beat it on you over and over and over again. But it was one of those it was one of those moments, like, in my teenage years where I was like, there's a story versus themes,
Okay.
right? And that's something that we do a lot in this podcast. Like, we try to look into the themes of movies.
Yeah.
Which is very different than a story. What's the story about versus what's the theme about?
Yeah.
And this movie uses the theme of fear. Yes, there's injustice versus vengeance, but, like, very much theme of fear. And it plants it early on with him being afraid. His fear gets the best of him at the opera house. That's why they leave. The last words his dad says isn't "I love you." It's "Don't be afraid." What do you fear, Mr. Wayne?
Yeah.
Right? It's time for you to face your fears. And, like, it beats you over the top.
It beats a dead horse. It's funny because, like, I'm a very optimistic person.
Yeah.
And so the phrase, again, it's like, why do we fall? To learn to get back up.
Mhm.
Right. That to me is, I just like this idea of, like, no, of the like, no, we have to give them a symbol to believe in.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the other side of, like, no, I think this is more like they're trying to build hope.
Okay. Yeah.
He's doing something to give the people who fear, like, I guess, but I'm always on the optimistic side of, like, he's trying to give hope to the individuals. And anyways.
And then you leverage the character of Scarecrow.
Yeah, Scarecrow.
As he puts his fear toxin
Yeah.
on people and they become afraid, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's unique how they leverage the theme of fear
Yeah.
to deconstruct the character of Bruce, but also to build up the character of Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful juxtaposition. It's incredible. I don't know. It always stood out to me because I think that was one of the first times where I was like, oh, the movies have
Themes. Mm-hmm.
Not just stories, but, like, there's themes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you're a aspiring scriptwriter out there, like, look at this movie. Look at this entire trilogy, right? Fear, the second one about chaos.
Yeah.
So yeah, this entire trilogy is very much well structured with telling you what a theme is versus a story.
Yeah. Nolan pitched this to Warner Brothers. This grittier take, this more grounded take. Why do you feel like we needed this?
Because we know that prior to this, Darren Aronofsky had pitched his movie, very much influenced by Batman Year One. Darren Aronofsky, famous for The Fountain, and Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we can imagine a very, like, deconstructed Batman movie from Darren Aronofsky. There was also, what's his face? I think Jeff Johns, a writer at DC, had also written a script. And it was very much like bringing it back to the roots. I do think we needed this. This is post 9/11.
Mhm.
The world, going back to fear, the world is very much in this state of uncertainty, especially America, and fear. And I think this was a way, and more so, I think The Dark Knight is very much a post 9/11 movie about terrorism.
Yeah.
And I think this is perhaps Nolan trying to navigate what it means to live in a world of fear, of fighting villains, so to speak, that are not traditional.
Mm.
Um, and so I think we needed this for a couple of reasons. One, to like process what we as a society were going through. Second, the events of what was the Schumacher Batman movies obviously put this IP at jeopardy.
Mhm.
It was challenging to know what we were going to do next with this. There's money to be made with Batman,
Yeah.
and Warner Brothers has always known that.
Yeah.
Hence why they can repeatedly continue, and to this day continue to want more Batman. But I think we needed this to like help elevate what comic book movies can be. And I say what you will about like excuse me, say what you will about Zack Snyder, but Zack Snyder has always said that to him, um, comic book characters are the modern day like Greek mythology stories,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There are lessons about life. There are warnings about life
Yeah.
that we can find through comic book stories. And I
Yeah.
think Nolan approached that by saying, if there was a way for us, if a man had the resources that a Bruce Wayne has, what would that be like in this in a real world setting?
Yeah.
And it's very smart. And I was watching some interviews from Nolan, but like he was very adamant about filming on location,
Yeah.
right?
He was.
And leveraging a city like Chicago
Mhm.
to do this. It makes us as the viewers feel like we're in a space that's relatable. And that isn't to dog on Tim Burton's stylistic Gotham,
Right.
or Schumacher's like ridiculous take on Gotham, but it makes us have a connection of, and in this entire trilogy is really focused on this, on Gotham society and what it means to be a member of society in this city.
Yes.
And we can all relate to that, right?
Yeah. I think that the idea that the city has a life.
Mhm.
Ra's al Ghul, Gotham, or the fake Ra's al Ghul, Gotham must die.
Mhm.
Right. It is the worst of the worst, and we've always been tasked to set things to correction, to bring something anew, and that the city, Gordon saying like how where the city has bent as this is. What did he say? He says, "I'm no rat."
Who's there left to rat to?
Yeah,
Or something like
with
that.
the city this bent,
Yeah.
right? And he's his partner just freaking flask, just losing. He's like, whoa. There's something to be said about that. We can all relate. We love our city. You identify. I come from the Ogden area, so O-Town, right? The people from Philly. I have a client who's out in the New Jersey, Philly, South Jersey, Philly area, and he's all this. There's this tribe. You have this when your city gets there. New York City,
Yeah.
huge. Again, 9/11. The fact that like they come together. This idea of like we're New Yorkers and we're gonna face whatever, right? As a country, we're gonna come together and we're gonna face that. And I like how not only does Nolan he sets what the city is, but really he develops it throughout the trilogy.
Mhm.
And I just think that like the tone for what happens, the foundation that he builds here is again some of the bigger payoffs that we get in the other two.
Yeah.
And I think it is just so crucial. I love that that citizens don't have hope. Everything's gross.
Yeah.
Every time I watch this film, I'm always just like reminded, like they really sell that no one cares about the city anymore.
Yeah.
Like they open it with the city is a industrious, and we're trying to provide a place for people to love the city. When that dies, that humanity dies with it.
Mm-hmm.
And now Bruce is trying to, Batman is trying to bring that back. And again, it comes back to the fact that like fear is used to break down Bruce and also build up Batman. But that Batman side is also trying to build up the city.
Mm.
And it's fantastic because Gotham is a character in this universe. And if you don't do what and I think it's okay that Tim Burton didn't he did it in a way that he was trying to make it stylized. It was about the world that they're living on screen.
Yeah.
But I think what Nolan recognizes is that it is better for us to see ourselves in that world than to be entertained by that world.
Yeah, I like that. And when in a good Batman story will leverage Gotham at its core, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Batman isn't necessarily fighting like superpowered. At times he is, or magical villains. But at the end of the day, like a lot of the villains are just worried about the city and how we destroy the city and
They're
how
mobs.
they're mobs, right? The first versions of Batman was him just going up against the mob.
Yeah.
And so like it's crucial if you're able to leverage the city as a character or as a story point to push the story or the narrative forward. When done right, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to talk about my favorite scene. Speaking of fear, I love to this day, continue to love the dock scene. When they're at the docks.
Dude, I remember in theaters.
Yeah.
Dude, it was one of it's so iconic.
Yeah.
It's so, and I think part of it is because it's so good.
Real quick, I just want to break that down. The choice to say we're gonna do a POV from the villains to introduce Batman. Now, Tim Burton did something a little bit similar as we're in the first scene as the family's leaving and they're walking the street and the villain or some thug just points a gun at the family and then Batman comes down. Right? But to say you spent 45 minutes, 50 minutes almost not seeing Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to show you Batman. But no, we're not going to show you Batman. We're going to give you the perspective from these mercenaries, from these thugs. Okay. And it's just so powerful because the construction of the camera here to say we're not going to show him. We're just going to stick to the reactions of these gunmen and their panic. As they're starting to freak out, and the one guy's just like, "Where are you?" Like he is sweating.
Yeah.
Where like he has to clean his eyes because he can't see, right? And just to like have him just come and just there's the one of the guy that's going up to like one of the containers.
Yeah.
And he just gets sucked in.
Dude, that's my favorite one. Oh.
I love the decision to say we are going to introduce him almost as this slasher monster, right? You look very early on at Jaws or at the Halloween movies, even Scream. Like we don't see the villain. We don't see who this slasher monster is, right? And you structure and build out this sequence like that. It continues to it builds on that theme of fear. And how he instill fear into these villains. I just love every second of that sequence.
What I mean, and I think that this is the thing is like when you're gonna put Batman on screen, you're like I want to maximize Batman in his suit. I want to maximize him kicking butt or whatever. But the bat. No, we can't do anything tonight. The bat's out. Right? This idea, like the comics have always introduced Batman as this ghost in the night, the boogeyman, right? Some people believe it, some people don't. Like I just love that, and I think that Nolan locks in on what the core value of Bat, like the true essence, and it's that fear aspect of like, he's trying to instill that fear, that perspective of like, we aren't safe. There's something, like I just love that they just have this, something's not right tonight.
Yeah.
I still love the interrogation of Flask.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that. Danny, as our in-house editor, producer, listeners, like I've shown a lot of restraint of not doing my Batman voice. But up to this point now, like, where were the other tracks going? Right? I just love it.
I know, me too. Where were they?
I love that because we haven't seen Batman do this on screen.
No.
Intimidate a villain like this. It's never been done. And you do believe, right, that he will drop him.
No.
Like you look at Christian Bale's performance here. Throughout this movie, and I know he gets a lot of grief about his voice later on. And in this movie, he doesn't quite commit to it as much as he does in The Dark Knight.
Correct.
He does here in this sequence as he's intimidating Flash, right? And I just find it fascinating that he just has pure anger in his eyes.
No, I think that to me is what, like, and I know people correct, but I love it. I love it every aspect. We know that he's done all the detective work, and there's just this one moment of him doing the building, striking the fear in this man who's shadows as he's a police officer, partners to to Batman's confidant in the police force.
He'll talk to me.
Yeah.
Swear to me.
Yeah, swear to me. And I think it's just, and honestly, I don't know for a fact, but I want to say that they actually made the cowl larger and they darkened the eyes so that they could get a better essence, and because there's this thing about, when you're shooting cinematography, you want to get the whites of their eyes, you want to make sure that they're in focus, that everything's there, but that scene is just so powerful. I swear to me, and he just drops them down. Oh, and and what I love about it is that, and he doesn't commit quite too much, but I think it's because he's still developing.
We see how he stroke fear into a group of individuals, and now we see very intimately how he strikes fear on one person.
Yes.
And I just think that that's just incredible to show that. You could have done it vice versa, right? Yeah. But to do it with the group setting first and then with the individual, it just builds off. It builds on top of that, and it's a wonderful, wonderful payoff.
In our other one, I got a lot of slack because I was like, Ben Affleck.
Okay. Yeah.
But I still love one of the Ben Affleck's performance and the way he decided to go about it in where he's aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce is also in the Christopher Nolan films also pretty aggressive. They're and that's Batman how he is. And I think he also strikes fear. We just don't get it as great. And again, why I wish somebody, whatever that moment to give Ben Affleck's Batman a moment to hopefully shine and strike fear in the hearts of the villains or the mobsters of Gotham.
Yes. And I don't want to open up this can of worms, but like,
if there's a can of worms to open, I'm going to open them, bro.
Ben Affleck, the way Christopher Nolan and Chris Terrio decided to write that Batman was very much he's striking fear by intimidating with a gun. Like he's killing characters, and I think that's just a bit of a cop out. And yeah, we'll get to Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Eventually.
eventually. uh, yeah, maybe we'll do it for when the next Batman movie comes out. We'll revisit that, but we'll open that can of worms then.
I don't know if that one. I would want to do Dark Knight to that one before I do.
Yeah, we will finish this trilogy before we get to Ben Affleck
for sure.
Um,
Anyways,
look, last thing, the score.
oh, dude,
James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer together is just pure perfection.
Mm-hmm.
If there's ever been
Mm-hmm.
perfection,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. I love that James Newton Howard wrote more of like the drama pieces of this movie. Obviously, Hans Zimmer really leans into the right. It's so good. 2 notes.
Yeah.
Who knew that just 2 notes would define the theme of Batman? Right. But James Newton Howard, like he incredible writer, composer for film, and he just really brings that emotion into this movie. And I love the combination of the two.
Mm.
I think this was the first time where I was like, oh, 2 people can write score for one movie? Great. Who better than the guy that's been doing M. Night Shyamalan's movies and Hans Zimmer, right?
Yeah.
And I love the emotion that they bring to it. I love the drums that Hans engages with every time Batman's on screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfection. Recently, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, James Newton Howard talked about like how he was going through a divorce and struggling, and was like even thinking about like suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And Hans approached him and said, "Hey, I have something to work. I want to work with on a movie with you. What is it?" And it's Batman. And he was very depressed and at a very low moment of his life. And it wasn't. And he has gone on record to say like it was Hans Zimmer and Batman that brought me out of it. I wrote what I was feeling at that time in this movie, right? And you feel it in those dramatic pieces.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
It is incredible. It just amplifies it. It is, it's not just about like adding. It's the moments of like when you get a moment to take a breath, when you're getting a cityscape, or you're establishing a new scene and beginning that you have these moments of locking in these the beginnings of the crescendo of the notes and where the melody is going to take us as the scene and moments progress.
Mm-hmm.
And it solidifies not just the mood or the feeling that we're supposed to do. It solidifies the world. It solidifies Gotham. It solidifies Batman. It encapsulates and amplifies this story as music should. But I mean, I think that like to me, it's they channeled a lot of I'm sure they looked at all the stuff that Superman with thinkings there, and they're like, what can we do? And I love that you said 2 notes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jaws. I mean, when we think about
it's true.
Striking fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jaws struck fear into the millions of Americans with those 2 notes.
Yeah.
And so bringing this idea of 2 notes of fear and that this is what we're going to do. It's awesome. And I love it.
And establish a legacy for generations of like an iconic Batman score here.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
This movie. I will never get old this, or never get bored of this movie.
Never. Look, I've been praising this movie a lot. I have some issues with like the fighting choreography, the camera movement.
It's not great.
It's not great. It gets better in the next movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, Batman still cannot turn his head. It gets better in The Dark Knight and in The Dark Knight Rises. These comments, I do get like taken out of the movie a bit with the car sequence
Yeah,
a bit.
So
Mainly just because of like the cops. And again, that's like probably a studio note of like interject some comedy here of like he's on the roof and like these notes or these lines that they're given, right? It's a little bit off at times, but it's wonderful to see that later in the movies, you look at this movie, and I think again, it gets overshadowed by The Dark Knight.
yeah,
But like you look at this, and then come The Dark Knight, you see how the studio was like, okay, we trust you,
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan. Like, do what you want.
Yeah.
And you see just how drastically different The Dark Knight is to this. Yet building on top of what this established,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see a actor of this caliber like really grow as an individual. And I think this is it's fun to see this movie that made me fall in love with Christopher Nolan
Yeah.
post Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
coming back to this and just seeing like his way of like shaping a story of like the editing, how this movie just the pace of it just goes and goes and goes. And we've talked extensively about how beautifully paced Oppenheimer is, but you see like the early stages of what that is here, right?
It's actually funny because I'm like, I remember, we talked now the 3 hours. This movie was also really long at the time.
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, they'd run out 2 hours and 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now it's like, yeah, it's not too bad. No, but at the time, 190 minutes. Your ideal movie lengths were that was like the big wins.
Yeah.
And so Nolan coming in with a superhero film this long, it was like, whoa, that's a long time. But it just flies. It every single time. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then I'm like, nah. I start watching it. I'm like, nah, I'm in. I'm in the ride. I'm locked in, and we're off the races. So I don't know. It's great. So, I want to circle back to the opening question of what is you kind of alluded, but to how do you feel that this film? Because I mean, don't get me wrong, Memento, amazing film, also very tied to time, right? This idea and in filmmaking and how time and filmmaking and all these things that come with it. But this is a film that it's an IP that is iconic.
Yeah.
It's he's doing something different. He's taking, the studio is taking a kind of a swing with this. He's trying to like lock in some kind of credibility to some degree, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And earns it, but how much of this locks him in for the next 10 years? 20 now what?
20 years.
20 years?
Still now. I think this puts him on a trajectory to be the influential director that he is to this day. Because you said it. You took an IP that, quite frankly, was dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Right. What happened with Batman and Robin, and I don't think we I mean, to the average movie goer, it's just like, it's a whatever movie. But like to you average movie goers, like Batman and Robin destroyed this IP.
Yeah.
It stopped, it ruined it. Again, in the 90s, we were getting a Batman movie every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then we went, 98 until now. So like we went for a while without movies, and no one wanted to touch Batman.
I feel like we're there now.
No,
stop.
I don't think so.
We had the Batman. I lied.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of because and part of it's James Gunn and Batman and the Brave and the Bold.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Warner Brothers was afraid of touching this IP again. And again, we've talked about Aronofsky wanting to pitch his idea, Jeff Johns, etc. And so, like, for Nolan to take this and say, we're going to do a retelling of the character in a real life situation. If this could happen in real life, how could we portray this? But to break down the character, and it just sets him on this path to then do The Prestige, to come back to do The Dark Knight Rises.
Solidifying.
Solidifying him. The Prestige becomes this wonderful hit. The Dark Knight just blows everyone out of the water. And it starts this trajectory of there is IP, there's money to be made. We knew this, but there is real money to be made in origin movies, in comic book movies, to the point where Casino Royale does this, right?
Yes.
A year after.
Yeah.
Like, Casino Royale is very much influenced by Batman Begins. The idea of, like, we're stripping away the gadgets, we're telling an origin story.
I love Casino
We're
Royale.
breaking down who James Bond is.
Yes.
Right? That all comes from Batman Begins. Yeah, the book lays a lot of that out, but, like, adapting that to here is because of Batman. And it puts Christopher Nolan in this position of power. Because then he comes back and says, for the next Batman movie, I want to shoot in IMAX a couple scenes here and there. Right? And then after that, he says, I'm going to do a movie about dreams and shoot more in IMAX.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to top it off with The Dark Knight Rises. And then I'm going to do this wonky movie about inner space traveling, right? And then it's just, I've always said, like, Christopher Nolan can throw paint at a piece of paper, take it to a studio and say, this is what I'm making. And they'll say, yeah, you can make that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he will just do whatever. He had that power at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers screwed him over, right, with the release of Tenet. And now he's at Universal. Universal? Or Paramount?
Universal.
And screwed. Yeah. And so, like, that's the power that he has, is that he can make whatever he wants now and gets the funding for it. But it all started here by taking a property, an IP that was dead on arrival, bringing a new take on it, and establishing a wonderful trilogy, making millions and millions and millions of dollars for the studio, and now he can do literally whatever he wants.
It's been documented in this pod a lot that I don't know when this happened, but there's this level of, like, when people love this huge thing or whatever, a huge hype train comes around, it's hard for me sometimes to want to just get on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I really care about this person, or is it because it's like everyone else is, right? And I mean, when I was, at 13 years old, and then, again, when Dark Knight Rises, as these trilogies came out, I didn't know Memento at the time, right? I knew Batman Begins, and that was a Christopher Nolan. And I remember Inception coming.
Yeah.
That was big. It was huge for me and my friends. And going to see this Christopher Nolan. And all my friends really love Christopher Nolan, right? And so this thing, but as much as he throws his weight around, and as much as it's like, oh, he's like a filmmaking god, he deserves the respect.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we would not be in the movie landscape without this. He solidified what we are still experiencing of how are we going, and part of the struggle, and also a little bit of a juxtaposition of, like, he also has, to some degree, ruined it for movies. He locked in an IP, and he told stories that were meaningful, that had impact, that drew our emotions, which we've said time and time again. And then Marvel studios are taking notes. Marvel Studio gets introduced. They want to do something they want to compete in the market. Spider-Man had kind of still had, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man's there. We lock in with Iron Man. Iron Man, great success. Follows a lot of the tropes. We, this competing sort of nature. But Marvel, the run of IP. This is the reason why we just continue to, like, how do we tell these stories? How can we create a trilogy or create a sequence of films to tell a masterful setup, right? Or a story that is impactful, that people want to come back and pay their monies with, right? I think it's a reason why we have the amount of Mission Impossibles we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, James, Tom Cruise coming in and saying, "No, I have another story for that." J.J. Abrams shortly comes after, gets an opportunity to take big swings with Mission Impossible 3. The man solidified this race to started the race in the IP wars, right? We're now in this weird fallout where movies are spending more and more. Sorry, I had this fear that the cameras had died. That studios are spending more and more and struggling to make films, and yet we are getting these films and they're bombing, or they're not making their money back, or they're just they're not good. And moviegoers we're unsatisfied. We're not only unsatisfied, we're let down.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have other people, like A24, who are creating these things because they're like, well, we're going to try to make, stories in a budget that they can go. But every filmmaker, all of my friends, when I was going to college or whatever, their ideals to become, I'm gonna try to do my magnum opus of I want to do my film and try to be part of the crowd of, and now Christopher Nolan or Spielberg, right?
Mm-hmm.
The greats. And yet it is, I don't know, there's just this level of like, yes, he gave us and he can do these huge swings. James Cameron, right? Spielberg can come in and do all these things. These huge films that are beautiful, that are amazing, to tell stories. But at what cost are we really getting? Like, what is the cost of it now? We're continuing to get more and more films that it's like Disney regurgitation of films in live action. And it's like, I want more films that surprise me, and not have to think like, well, should this movie have been made? Is it good enough at the cost that it is? Like, and I don't, who knows that the regular movie thinks about this stuff, but we're in this podcast, we're 101 episodes in, and the reality of what this man has done is both beautiful and kind of sucks.
Yes, and I think. Okay, let's open this can of worms.
Okay, so we told you that this is gonna be a strong one. It's a minute. If you're still with us, we really appreciate you. We might. I don't know if we'll make this in 2 parts. Probably not. I don't know.
We could. Look, the movie Oppenheimer is very much, I think, Christopher Nolan writing down and portraying his role and his part in superhero in the movie industry that we're in.
Oh, okay.
Because of Christopher Nolan, Hollywood realized there is money to be made in comic book movies. And in the film industry, the last decade, especially 10 to 12 years, has been thriving / surviving because of superhero movies
or IPs of.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the last 10 years worth of like the highest grossing films,
yeah,
you have Avatar, you have Star Wars, and you have Marvel movies.
Yeah,
several Marvel movies.
Yeah,
right. And I think there's a lot of people that blame comic book movies for the state of the movie industry that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They ruin cinema. People only go to be entertained to these things, and you have other directors who are saying, Marvel is crap or superhero movies suck, and they're what are they providing to society?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But if you are on that side of the argument, then who is to blame here? And it's Christopher Nolan. And I think Oppenheimer was very much, I think personally, was a very personal movie, because we know that Christopher Nolan is such a proponent of cinema.
Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah.
and maintaining the art of cinema, of going to movie theaters and that experience. But I think because he did Batman Begins, because he did such a perfect superhero trilogy, that other studios wanted to jump in on this trend and quote unquote build their own atomic weapons. And you have now this environment of filmmaking, of just IP, of just superheroes, of the only reason that movie theaters are still in business is because we're relying on people going and seeing Robert Downey Jr. come back as Doctor Doom, right? I think that was him processing his thoughts of, I created this monster that can no longer be detained and contained. And for Oppenheimer, it was the creation of the atomic bomb. For me, I created this demand of comic book movies.
And it's not going to stop.
And it's not stopping. And if it stops, is it because it's oversaturated and we're no longer making good movies? And if it stops, does that put the movie theater experience in jeopardy? Does it make cinema?
Wow, bro!
I've thought about this for the last 2 years since Oppenheimer came out, and I think other people probably think the same way. But like, I do think Oppenheimer was him processing this. Like, what did I create?
Yeah.
And has it been? Did what I created has it benefited the industry, or has it made it worse? And I think, whether with whatever side of the coin you are on, if Oppenheimer, what he created was to benefit humanity or made things worse, I think these are the questions that he is processing as he has made that movie, as he became such a critical component in the comic book landscape that we're in. And does he have a sort of maybe regret? I don't know if that's what it is.
No, yeah.
But I do think he does question. Look, if there are two people in Hollywood currently that are such proponents for the cinematic experience and movie theater experience and keeping movie theaters alive, it is Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan.
100%.
These are the two individuals that are really pushing for this. And I'm confident that Christopher Nolan asks himself this question: did I create the weapon that is now ruining the cinema?
Yeah.
Am I to blame that superheroes have become this oversaturated product and that people are upset that this is why people go to the movies or whatever that may be?
Yeah.
This is it.
Mm-hmm. This has been such a great conversation. We do want to know what your thoughts are about this situation. We hope you enjoyed today's episode on Batman Begins. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you love this episode, leave us a review, drop a comment, join us. It really does help us out.
Please reach out. What are your favorite moments from Batman Begins? What do you think about Christopher Nolan's role in current cinema, in the current state of cinema? You can always connect with us by joining our newsletter at realchums.com/newsletter. And you can find me, Marcel, on Instagram and Threads at Marstrosity, MARZTROSITY.
You can find me at Rubio.tv.
Join us next week as we begin our month of wrongly accused movies with The Fugitive.
I'm pumped.
I'm excited. I think I've been on record saying that I don't have a favorite movie. It's hard for me to say I have a favorite movie, but like if I were to have a favorite movie, this would be in like the top 10.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Catch us next time.
Later.